Welcome back to the SWAU channel and the conversation with the stars. And our guest this week, I'm so excited because this show is absolutely amazing. She is the executive producer, writer, and showrunner of Mayfair Witches. It's Esta Spalding. Esta, welcome to the show, my love.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
And first of all, congratulations on season 1. Amazing. And then now season 2. It's a must watch for everyone. So let's get the questions rolling, because this show, how did it land on your lap? How did you come across this show? Because we're all familiar with the Anne Rice books, but how did this come about for you?
For me, it came about because I had worked for a long time with the writer Michelle Ashford. We worked on a show she was the showrunner, called Masters of Sex. And we were just always looking for something to work on together. And then Mark Johnson, who's the producer of Mayfair Witches and of Interview with the Vampire and the whole Anne Rice universe, knew Michelle from long ago. So he approached her and said, would you be interested in doing this show? And she said, I'd be interested in writing the pilot. I don't know about the running a whole show. I've got a lot on my plate. So I was introduced into the mix, and Michelle and I wrote the pilot together, and then I continued to run the show and run the writer's room and break the rest of the first and second season.
And the rest is history. And I've got to say, this show has got it all. It's literally got it all, from the suspense, the drama, and the great moments, especially with Lasher, which we will talk about. But did you have a previous knowledge of Anne Rice's work before taking this on, or did you have to then get all the books out and get some background work going?
I knew, as many people did, Interview with the Vampire, and I didn't know anything about the city of New Orleans, but what I knew about it, I knew from her work, the kind of magic of the place, the music of the place, that incredible culture. I had shot another show there in New Orleans. It was a show that was set in Florida, so we were trying to make New Orleans seem like Florida. So the idea of being able to work on a project with somebody who is so much a part of that city and beloved in that city, and to shoot New Orleans for New Orleans. Also when you're doing a job like I do, you get really, really connected to your crew. You love your crew, and the thought of being able to go back to New Orleans and work with that crew again was so tempting. So, I sort of embraced it, and then added to that, there was working with Michelle on it, and there was this amazing thing that Anne Rice had done, which is that she had made her main witch, the main character in the books, Rowan, a doctor. And I loved this idea because, of course, the witches who were burned in the Middle Ages, many of them were midwives and healers. I love this idea of a witch as a healer, as a doctor. So I locked in and connected to that part of Anne Rice in a way, even though I didn't know the Mayfair Witches books to begin with.
I think this is great, because I think we've all got a fascination with witches. Where I used to live and work was a place called Canterbury, and that has got quite a big history with witches. It's even got a ducking chair still there from the 16th and 17th century. And now watching this show, I've got to say, I have done a lot more research on witches, and I'm very, very shocked in what I've read, because a lot of people won't realise that actually a lot of things happened, and unfortunately a lot of people died during the 16th and 17th century, which is just crazy to think.
That's absolutely where our story starts. Anne Rice starts in Scotland. She starts with this young midwife healer, Suzanne, and that's the origin of the Mayfair story. They do end up in New Orleans, and we start our show in New Orleans. But as you know, the second season takes us back to Scotland and back to the world of those original Mayfairs. And so, we were there. We actually filmed Ireland for Scotland. But of course, I went to Scotland while we were filming. And there was this one, I was up on that, incredible area in Edinburgh. And there was a plaque that said, this is a plaque to commemorate the deaths of all of the witches, many of whom were innocent,
Mm.
which I thought was
And
interesting. It
and
wasn't
I've got to
all of them are innocent, it was many of them were
And
innocent.
it's the oddest thing that if they drowned and they didn't live, they were innocent. And I just can't believe that back then men were thinking that way. It's just absurd. It really is. So how difficult was it to take such a great book from Anne Rice and actually put it onto screen? Because it's got to be quite difficult to get everything, from that book
Yeah.
onto screen. How did you tackle that?
I mean, hindsight is 2020. It feels like we really rushed the first book. We took Rowan's story in the first book, and we tried to use a little bit of Suzanne's story, but we took on trying to tell all of Rowan's story from that first book in one season of television. And in retrospect, it's like there's so many places I wish we could have slowed down and spent more time with Rowan and her kind of discovery that she is a witch. It's an impossible task to take a novel that long, many 1,000 something pages, and to try to find a way to put it into 8 episodes of television. So we did the best we could. One thing I'm finding as we go further along and talk about could there be a season 3 and so on, is that there's so much richness in that first book that there is a lot to go back to.
Yeah.
There's there's 12 generations of Mayfair witches we didn't use in the first season or talk about in the first season that we can now explore.
And not picking up on what you just said, but you mentioned a season 3. Is that anything official, or is that
Oh
just
no,
hoping? Yes,
always what
yes.
you're
The
doing.
fans
Fingers
need
crossed.
to.
And
Yes, sir.
yeah, and even when you're finishing a second season, in order to open the right doors and close certain things off and so on, you sort of have to let yourself think about if there's a third season as you're, writing the finale of your second season. So it's a pleasure to get to think beyond the second season, no matter what happens.
Well, fingers crossed for you. Fingers crossed. I want to see more. And talking about the cast, I mean, how involved were you in actually finding, the right Lasher and the right Rowan? Because the actors that you've chosen are absolutely exceptional. They really are. They're literally so captivating on screen to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a collaborative effort. I mean, the showrunner has a huge amount of say, obviously, in picking the cast, but the network, they're a really valuable asset in terms of knowing and having worked with a lot of the actors and suggesting people, and they have a point of view. And of course, my producer, Mark Johnson and Graham Villa. So it was a conversation all along the way, but I couldn't be happier with what we arrived at. I have to say the trickiest part to cast was Lasher, because he has to be sexy and seductive, but he's also a spirit. He isn't using his hands. He isn't, there's a bunch of rules around how he works, and he's got this hold over the women. So you have to have an actor of a certain kind of charisma and power. You need to believe that he's this, that he was a spirit in Scotland and so on. So he needs to have different voices. And Jack Houston was just, someone suggested him. It was like, right. We had said we need to cast, somebody who is Kurt Cobain in the 90s, or Keith Richards in Mick Jagger in the 80s. Like, we need a rock star where when that person walks in the room, it's sort of people fall silent. And Jack has that kind of just wonderful charisma and energy.
You don't know what to do, fall in love with him or run from him. So you certainly get those moments in the show. So while filming this, I've noticed that from footage I've seen, that you're on set quite a lot, if not all the time. Was there a moment in, say, season 1 that you were filming that you had a moment where you stopped and thought, wow, I'm actually making actual magic here for the screen? Because there's got to be a moment or a scene that you thought, wow, we're on to a winner here.
I'm not kidding you. Every day on set feels like that to me. I mean, also I love working with people who feel that way, which is even the hardest day. You're kind of all looking around at each other saying, like, pinch me. true that we're getting to make this? Is this true they've given us these amazing resources? We've found this incredible location. The production department, the design department has built this extraordinary set. You just sort of feel the wonder of, I was somebody as a kid who loved to play dolls, and now it's like, getting to play dolls in the biggest possible way. This incredible, incredible dollhouse, which
I mean,
also you will know is something that's in the show.
yes, and I'm so looking forward to the rest of season 2, because I saw a trailer and we see some vampires. And
Yes.
vampires for me has been a favorite. I love every vampire movie and TV show out there. I mean, what have we got to look forward to without spoiling anything? Because I know that people are going crazy over, I think it's called the Immortal universe.
Yes.
That they call it, and the crossovers. I mean, without spoiling anything, I mean, what sort of things can we look forward to in the way of certain characters that may be coming into Mayfair Witches?
For sure, we wanted to play with that this year, and there is a vampire who comes from the interview with the vampire world, who enters our world, and without spoiling too much, he's connected to Lasher. He becomes connected to Lasher in some way, and sort of, I think, teaches Lasher some life lessons, for better or for worse. So that was really fun Easter egg to write, and to think about. Lasher is in the second season. He's come back into this corporeal form. He's wondering, what am I? And a vampire would have a certain point of view on that. So
Yeah.
that was really, really fun to write, and that was a fun overlap. And then our Talamasca characters overlap with the interview world and with our world, and there's a little bit of a interview with the vampire Easter egg at the end of the season and all of that.
Wow. I mean, this show really, really gives the audience such a great ride, because talking about Lasher, there is a moment where he goes to, I don't want to ruin it for people, but he does something with Rowan, and it makes you feel, oh no. I don't want to tease it too much, but I just think it's fantastic, the journey that you're taking us, and the moments where you cringe as well. And I'm talking about Ted Levine, which is an absolutely amazing actor, and he stars in season 2 as Julian. I mean, what is it like getting an actor of that caliber on the show, and that ability to sort of, I don't know, steal the scene, really, because he's so imposing. And I love how that scene was done with the table as well, and him being higher. I mean, how did that all come about, and what was it like having him on set?
Well, so I've worked with Ted on, this is the third show I worked with him on. I worked on the show The Bridge, and he was in that. And then on Becoming a God in Central Florida, which was a show I ran, he was like the main sort of nefarious character involved with the pyramid scheme. So, of course, for me, Ted is the first call if there's a certain kind of wild character that you're looking for. And he read Anne Rice, he read the sections about Julian and was in. It was really, really, really thrilling. I think he got to play with Harry Hamlin, and the two of them really, really enjoyed working together and sparked together. They also hung out and played guitar in between takes. They both had their guitars on set. So that was, and he knew a lot of the same crew, because we'd worked together before. So it was a really great experience having him there. And I was so thrilled. I mean, our cast was so excited to have him, but also how much he loved the cast. He had almost a solid week working in this pub set with Alex Daddario, and the two of them, this cat and mouse game, it was just really fun to watch them connect and bond as actors and really appreciate each other. So it was amazing to have him. As far as the table scene goes, that was completely the pitch of the director, Logan Kybens. She said, I want it to really feel like Cortland is a child. And I think the way to do that is to build this foreshortened table where Julian's at this big, wide, high up end, and Cortland's down at this other size. And we can feel the childlike sort of, supplication of Cortland, and it's so worked. That day, that was an entire day of shooting. The contents of that scene in that room, and all of the buffet of food, and of course the gag with Cortland's arm, and a lot of people at the end of the season said that was the greatest day. It was just such a fun experiment, and the footage that came out of it was so gratifying because it was so strange.
And Harry in that scene just delivered such a phenomenal performance, because the way he looks up and you can just see the vulnerability in his eyes, it's just incredible. It really, really is. So kudos to him. I mean, he's an amazing performer.
Absolutely. You really feel he's a child somehow. It's so extraordinary. Yeah.
And then we've got Rowan. We see her journey in season 1. What can we expect from her story arc? Because she's gone through a lot through season 1. She really has, from being someone that doesn't know where she fits in her own world to now finding out that she's Mayfair, of the Mayfair family. I mean, what can we expect the journey for her to be like in season 2? Because season 1 ends pretty dramatic, to say the least.
Well, I mean, the wonderful, strange cocktail of Anne Rice is that she's now the mother to her former demon lover. So yeah. That's a very, very strange experience. And her relationship with Lasher becomes incredibly complicated as a result. There's still this attraction there, but she's now the mother. And, it's very interesting. I think the main journey that she's going through, though, is that she is taken on the mantle of being a witch, of leading the family, but there are still parts of her that are very human. And we tried to represent that through the relationship with this character, Lark, who comes into her world and with whom she's trying to be both a witch and a human. And, she has to decide by the end of the season, who am I really? Am I going to cast off this human part of myself and fully emerge as a witch, for better or for worse? We know that means having to make decisions about power, to kill, to save in her case, because she can heal. And she's, I think, grappling with those questions, the moral questions around her power. But power is a slippery slope. So it gets really interesting. Her kind of loyalty to the family and her leadership of the family is a big question in the season as well. Does she want it? Will she do it? How will she do it? And so we watch this arc as she becomes and ascends to a position of real earned leadership in the family.
And we see some new characters. We see Sam Larkin. We see Moira Mayfair. Some great characters. And I love how they get introduced into season 2. I mean, is it quite nice, doing season 1, but then introducing new characters? And how do you think that's going to change the dynamics with Rowan and Lark? Because obviously there's history there. So will we get to explore more of that in the rest of season 2?
For sure. Yeah. Lark is there on the ride with her, watching her become and evolve into what she's becoming. I mean, and then of course we introduced Moira because we really, really wanted a powerful witch who is an adversary to Rowan, who has a power not as strong as hers, but different from hers, and a power that threatens her. Moira is a mind reader. And to watch the two of them sort of learn whether or not they trust each other, and how, if they're going to steer through common family problems together, who's going to take what role. It's a really fun problem.
I mean, I love how this family is it's all about trust, isn't it? No one trusts each other. You don't know what they're capable of doing. And talking about powers, we see some wonderful powers, especially from Moira, that can read minds. Have you ever thought to yourself, Esther, that if you can have one power, what power would that be of a witch? What would you like to be able to do?
So basic. I would just want to fly. Forget about all the other stuff, whatever. I'm like, I want to be able to fly.
You see, if I asked my wife that, she would just say, I would just want a cat. Forget the powers. She would just want a cat. And then we talk about the fans. The fans are very passionate and very opinionated in a good way. Has there been anything from season 1 that you've listened to and maybe taken on board that the fans have said, or has it been just literally the vision of yourself going forwards?
Yeah, no, I think that that's part of the reason I feel we rushed book 1 is because the fans felt we rushed book 1, that in tackling just Rowan's story, we left these other stories out. And it's for sure a reason I want to pull in, and am trying always to pull in more of the material that's in book 1 so that still lives in the series and honors the fans' desire to see some of those older characters and some of that past history of the Mayfairs. So that was, that has been a lesson for sure. Just the sheer amount of story that there is to tell in this, and trying to slow down how we tell it, and trusting that there's going to be enough seasons there that we'll get to tell a lot of it.
It's got to be very difficult, hasn't it? Because when you've got a fan that loves a book, they're reading the book and they're sort of making this show themselves in their head. So,
Absolutely.
How can you then take that book? I mean, I've always said that whoever takes on a project, they're going to do it in their vision from that book.
Yeah.
It's never going to be, it's never going to please everyone. I mean, personally, I've never read the books, but I know of them, and I absolutely love this show. I can't wait to see more. I want to talk about New Orleans because it's one place I've never been and that I've always wanted to go, because literally to look at it's steeped in this dark sort of voodoo magic and mystery, and the trees are just absolutely beautiful. Was that based in the book then, or was New Orleans a place that you decided to do it?
No, it's all in the books. And in fact, the First Street house where the story is set is based on the house that Anne Rice was living in as she wrote the books. So,
wow.
You can picture her up there typing away at the books and turning and looking down the hallway and describing what's in that hallway and so on. Like it was so completely the story, I think. And the story is very much about the house. It connected to her own lived experience in New Orleans. And I was, when we were filming, very close to that house. I was renting a place, and I would walk almost every morning and just walk around it, get my steps in, looking at the pavement that it's all tossed up with the roots of those old oak trees and so on. It's just, she really brings the city to life as it is. But then, of course, she's so beloved that she's also kind of helped continue to make the dream of the city, to help the city understand and see what it is, because her stories tell people, that lore. Mm-hmm. So it's really symbiotic between her and the city, and it's been wonderful to shoot there because it feels like we get to have the same relationship. We wanted to have a sort of second line funeral episode, and we found these incredible musicians, this crew of Skull and Bones crew, who came and played their own music and marched their own marches in their own costumes for us in our funeral second line in one of the episodes in the first season. And to bring in what's in New Orleans and feature it in the show, let those artists be alive in the show, it's a real gift to get to be a part of that.
And I read somewhere that you had real witches on set as consultants.
We did, actually. Yes, absolutely.
That's amazing.
Because, I mean, there are spells for certain things. You want to make sure you're not just inventing something, but you're using, the spell that's known in that community. So we had also a Latin professor who helped us a lot, because so much of Anne Rice's magical language for the Mayfairs is Latin. So I was always worried we were going to be using the wrong, person or tense or whatever. So witches and Latin experts.
I know I mentioned earlier on about the moment on set when if you had that moment that you thought that you was making magic, but I wanted to ask that, obviously writing this show as well, have you got a favorite scene or a moment that you're proudest of, from seeing it from paper to screen, from you writing it to actually seeing it being performed out?
There's almost too many to name, honestly, but I will say that getting to see our Scottish Mayfairs come to life and the castles and those locations, some of the extraordinarily sort of strange folk horror that comes out of a place like that, and to honor the sort of that British vein of folk horror in those locations with this story that's like Anne Rice's story of old Scotland and old rituals and so on. That the last 3 episodes of season 2 were really, really special. And everybody, I mean, we got to Ireland and it was, everybody felt it. It was just, it was really, really fun to be shooting there. And those places, those castles and mansions and strange stone stone rings and so on, brought the spirit of the books to us. So the scenes became alive in a way they never could be on the page.
Well, I hope this show goes on for many, many seasons. I really do. I mean, if you could sum up season 2 in 3 words for the fans out there, how would you sum up season 2?
I would say that it's absolutely bonkers. It goes
in a good way.
Some really wild places, but it's very, very fun.
Oh, Esther, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Thank you so much for delivering us this amazing show to watch. And I love after every episode, you get like the insider's view. And we get to hear from you as well, talking a bit about the show, which is great, which is fantastic to watch. Because
that's the part where I'm like, wait, why am I on screen? I'm supposed to be the person who hides
No,
behind
it's
the screen.
brilliant because there's so much stuff going on. It's quite nice because it sort of gets a better understanding, and it's just it's lovely to see. It really is. But Esther, you look after yourself.
You're kind
keep
to
safe.
say that.
No. But look after yourself, keep safe, and who knows, maybe I can speak to you again when season 3 comes out. That would be awesome.
Hope so. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching the show.